my partner, Melissa Yamaguchi, and you have joined Out Comes the Sun podcast. And this is I think it's our 10th. Is this our 10th?
Time flies when you're having fun, and I lose track of my birthdays. I lose track of everything. So
Anyway,
it's another great one.
It's another great one. Is it? Yeah, I think it's 10. Anyway, we are super excited today. We only want to talk to each other because sometimes that's all we've got. Not because we don't have a guest, but what we like to do is kind of assess what's happening in the world and how that affects our brains. And things have changed in the last 2 decades, but really in the last decade, things have become so compartmentalized and small and narrow, and it's like we get so much information at all times, and it really is affecting our mental health. I think that I think that, well, Melissa, you can go. I mean, we've had hurricanes, we've had there's so much PTSD in the country, there's so many things going on. And we're going to talk about even social media and people that are expressing too much about themselves. Right. I think they're expressing too much about themselves. I mean, I come from a different generation of Hollywood where, there was a little mystery to the people who were up on the screen for you, whether it be television or the films. But now it's like, everything about everybody. So we're going to discuss those things, the things that go on in the world that affect us because they're natural disasters and they have a tremendous effect on you. And then the other things, which in my opinion, we could control if we chose to be people who made different choices so that we don't have to air our dirty laundry with everybody, but also cause stress, not only to people around you, but to your family. So I think that's kind of what we want to talk about today. Don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, I love when you and I get together because I feel like we recalibrate and kind of understand what's happening around us, and then we can kind of charge back out. But all that you said and more. We've got everything from natural disasters, which we don't have any control over.
Right.
And like I was telling you earlier, it's like, it doesn't matter if your insurance is paid and your house is paid off, and your taxes are paid up. It doesn't matter what you've done right. Natural disaster comes and you're taken out. It's still, even if you can build back quickly, even if you are blessed enough to build back quickly, you're still affected by the trauma of the devastation and your neighbors and the community, and everything's gone.
Absolutely.
So there's that. And then we swing the pendulum all the way over to the other side, where there's personal choices in creating your own personal tsunami with your social media exposure, airing all your dirty laundry. And, there was a big backlash, what is it, like 3 or 5 before COVID, there was this big backlash of people are taking too many selfies, and they're fabricating their lives and for the sake of eyeballs.
Yes.
And so then then the pendulum kind of shifted where it's like, okay, well, let's get real.
Right.
And people were showing things, and I don't really need to see the glossy filter, but I also don't want to know how many warts you have. Thank you very much. We need to keep some things private, but we're losing the ground on what the sacred ground on where to walk. We've lost it. But in the news, you and I have mentioned this before, where we talk every day, and if we don't, the world falls off its axis when you and I don't get to speak. But when Hurricane Ian hit Florida and was sweeping through and going past the Puerto Rican, the Cuban area, Cuba, and I received a phone call on your behalf, asking, your opinion. Please, can we get a quote from Mariel about Cuba and about the Hemingway home in Florida? And so that began really kind of this earnest dive into what's going on down there, because at the risk of sounding too monkey see monkey do, we're in California, and I was like, we got tornadoes, we got hurricanes, whatever. I can't keep everything with all the earthquakes and everything else. So I didn't pay as much attention, but then I dove deep in to find out. And one of the things that our producer was mentioning to us earlier, Slater, was saying that even on TikTok, people are, even if you didn't watch the news, but you were just kind of pilfering through TikTok, and you're that generation who watches it, People were showing close up, right? Close up the devastation that was happening in their homes, in their neighborhoods, to them personally through TikTok. So you got to see outside of the news, because the news couldn't get down there,
Right.
besides the, being blown
Right.
away. People were showing firsthand devastation, and so the heart palpitations and the trauma that was going on for people, worrying about people down there, wondering how far it's going to go. I'm now in North Carolina. Is this coming for me next? People really the fear. So there's something to be said about this swing of the effect of what this does to us. Now there's a cathartic reason people put this stuff on TikTok.
Yeah.
It's like, look, somebody, look, we need help down here, and oh
Yeah.
my gosh, can you believe we survived this?
Right.
But then there's also this sullied rag magazine approach to our lives that somehow cheapens it, but what never diminishes, regardless of the approach, are the mental health effects, which you talked about in the beginning. The mental health effects that this does to us, even if we don't turn on, even if we don't turn on the social media, we're still being bombarded by the news
Right.
because the news is introducing it to us. So I think one of the things that in having to approach this thing with the natural disasters and things happening around the world, we find out now our grandparents didn't have social media, so they had to wait until the papers came out with it. And
Right.
that's when they would discover that there was an earthquake in Mexico or a fire in Germany or whatever's going
Well, and
on.
also, I think the ability we have to get information to people so quickly, yes, it's great. People can prepare all of that, but
Mm-hmm.
also it starts this fury of of cortisol and fear and craziness
Yeah.
that happens. The hormones that explode in your body when you're terrified something's going to happen. How do I prepare for this? Where do I need to go?
Yeah.
All of that. Or, my mother and father-in-law are in Florida. How are they going to fare through this disaster? So there's a benefit to knowing, and then there's also this craziness that never happened. Even when I was a kid, it wasn't like it was a million years ago, but we, like you said,
Yeah.
if the newscaster guy couldn't get down there, you read about it in the paper the following morning, right? So and the question is, to ourselves and to each other, is that better? Is it better to not know quite as much? But I mean, I suppose people would come after me for saying that, because they would say, no, it's good that we have this
No.
information. We can save ourselves and we can protect ourselves, and we know that our neighborhood is, in real danger, and we can get out. So yes, there's goodness to that. But there's, I don't know, information is powerful, but it also can be detrimental in the wrong hands. I guess when it is the wrong hands, sometimes it's when social media takes it, and it's
Yeah.
not in the hands of a journalist who's saying, look, I want to give both sides of a story. I want to like weigh the two sides of this and give you a really educated opinion about what's going on both sides, making no political statement, whatever.
You're
But
talking about the days of Walter Cronkite.
right, and
Yeah.
that's and that
Edgar
doesn't
R.
and
Murrow.
that
Yeah.
doesn't even exist anymore. I mean, it's hard to
Not
find
so
a
much.
journalist that's really not swayed by the company that's trying to get more views.
That's right. That's all it is.
Whatever network it is, they want you to watch them, so they're gonna
Yes.
make their stuff more extreme. And there's, that's scary. We live in a time where it's like, how many people can I get? We want people to listen to our little podcast, but it's like, to what degree do you push so that you can do all that stuff? I don't know. It doesn't
Well, it's a
feel right.
responsibility.
Yeah, it is.
There's a huge responsibility. So if you're going to expose something, you have a huge responsibility to how you put it out. And so therein lies the rub.
Yes.
We've got neophytes with their phones becoming ad hoc journalists, going out and putting stuff out. And part of that has saved people. I know that when there has been brutality on the streets, and just an innocent bystander filmed it, and then it hit the news cables, the perpetrators were arrested. So it's, and sometimes saved. So there's this weird fine line that, one of the, I'm going to digress here for one fast second, I promise. But oftentimes when people hit celebrity, and they, to in whatever arena that it's in, and
Right.
they accumulate pretty seemingly rapid amounts of money that they were not prepared for. They didn't
Yeah.
grow up with it. They didn't have generational wealth. They're not prepared mentally on how to handle the fame, the influx of everything, people coming at them in 50 different directions. In that same way, we're not really prepared if we film something and then we air it, how that's going to hit people. And when you've studied
Right.
journalism, when you've studied it in a responsible way, you realize this, we got to be careful how we relay the information. It's going to hit people. Well,
Yes.
now, even that, I was jokingly saying Walter Cronkite and Edward R. Murrow, but the truth of the matter is, even now, our news anchors, channels, stations are bringing us information that's driven by social media.
Yes.
So they're competing. It used to be that the major stations
I
would be
know.
competing with the cable channels, and now it's they're competing with social media.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm,
It's great.
I'm
That's crazy. And that, I mean, you get a job nowadays. People look at your social media account when you go in for the
yes,
interview, or you don't even go in for the interview. You do it on Zoom, whatever, something weird, right? So there's this weird, like, we've made social media and people's ability to connect with everybody and everybody and every celebrity, and we can
yep,
all connect, we can all follow, and we can all make a comment, we can all do this. And it's like, it's very weird. We spread the responsibility so much that nobody has to take any. You know what I mean? It's
that's right,
like
that's right.
nobody has to say, you know what, I'm responsible here. So even if it's, Joe who lives down the street in Florida and he got hit and whatever, and he puts out a video, and it's the intention is to be fine with it or whatever, but it's like you said, it will hit somebody in a way that will be devastating or not, but it just I just find this time really challenging, and it must be challenging for people with young children, because like my kids
Certainly.
are adults, so I don't have to worry. I don't have
You,
to
you
worry
know,
about them in the same kind of way. But it's like, wow. I just think of that, and I think of the children, because they're so new, they're fresh, their brains are like sponges.
and
They
they're
take
trusting.
things, they're trusting,
Yeah,
and they take it all in. And
yeah,
and and what and that's hard on a brain. I mean, it used to be like you'd go to a movie and you were like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be in this movie with my kid. It's like
yeah,
it's so violent, or it's spooky, right? And
yep,
now you don't know what your kids are, they're watching everything. And
oh yeah,
how you always hear kids know everything. You think you're
yep, they
hiding
do.
it from me. They know, and they have access. I mean, I know there are things that you can do, but are there really things that you can do? You remember being a kid, you figure out ways to get around all the rules,
I sneaked
right?
into Jaws, and I was not allowed to see it. Saw it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, but it's
no,
it's a
I get it.
weird time. It's a
Yeah,
very
it is.
scary time, and it means that the responsibility for a parent, the responsibility for a teacher, the responsibility for a real journalist who wants to get real information, it's like that's an overwhelming job, because where do you go? Where do you go to get
Hmm.
new information that is clean, right? That is clean and
Right.
not tainted by a social media opinion.
Well, and I think that what this tells me always is that whenever I'm stressed or you're stressed, we reach out to each other outside of
Yes.
family. We lean
Yes.
on each other. So
Yes.
it's your community. It's
Yeah.
your community, however small or large, that you've got to lean in on. And this is what
Yeah.
we know, that the clue to surviving the pandemic, because we were so isolated from one another, was staying in connection, even if it was by text, touch, however it was, staying in connection. And then the next thing with the hurricane is the reaching out and people forming communities. This is what happened to my house, and then this kind of a, the communities that were formed around people suffering from addiction.
Yeah.
leaning on one another. It's the same mentality. But you were talking about social media and this the onus that is on the parents when you have a child to help protect them or help educate them, and you've got to stay on top of it too. But now I was talking to you earlier about the fact that I remember when I was younger when Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor were divorcing, and it was nasty,
Right.
and it was this wicked divorce, and
Right.
everything was sprayed all over the news, and nobody really, I never heard, maybe I wasn't paying attention, but I don't think I ever heard an opinion on my mom or dad one way or another on who was right or wrong. But now we've got this influx of
Yeah.
information from people in the public eye who are going through a divorce, and we hear all the sordid details that we
Yeah.
don't need to hear, and then the celebrity or the well-known person can get onto a news channel,
Yep.
can certainly go through Snapchat, TikTok, Twitter, whatever, just boom, 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 bombard you and get all this information about
Personal
the divorce.
information. It's personal. See, here's what I don't get. Doesn't anybody want to have their own private life? At a certain point, it's not everybody's, even if you're a public figure, it's not everybody's business to know
No.
everything about you. And also, I just think it's irresponsible as a parent, if you're going through a divorce and you're a public figure, to do that. And the repercussion, you're not thinking about your kids. You're not thinking, because they know somebody's saying something somewhere in their world,
Yeah,
so they know. And it's to me, it's irresponsible, and it's hurtful. It's just
it is
hurtful.
hurtful.
And nobody's thinking about what is that doing? What is that? That's trauma.
It's
Especially
true.
for a kid, it's trauma.
Remember when?
It's gonna affect them for a long time. I mean, geez, when I was making movies and I had, I went through, like, not even traumatic stuff, but like, if it doesn't do well or you get a bad review, whatever.
Right.
But if you're a sensitive being, that's it can be traumatic. Imagine your real life being blown up and being attacked. Your parent, and then you've got to wonder, like, how, it kind of breaks my heart, because I think it's got to stop. You
Well,
know?
Anderson Cooper wrote a book about his mother's tragedy, what Gloria Vanderbilt went through as a child when she was the child in that custody war as a young
Yes.
girl in the 30s, and the trauma that it left her with, the pain that it left her with as this young child being tousled back and forth in the courts. And even then, the public didn't have a complete understanding of what was happening. They just knew something was happening. And poor little Gloria Vanderbilt went through, I use the word, ironically, but she went through all this pain.
Right.
And then it marred her enough in a way that when she was raising her two boys, that she was very sensitive and tender about information that was shared about them. So that in a divorce or in a separation, even in a business breakout, but especially when there's a divorce and there's children involved, whether or not the other side has merited the anger
Hey,
and the viciousness.
sorry, Daisy's going crazy. Daisy! I don't know.
She's just protecting you from the bad guys, Mom. Come on.
There's a butterfly.
I didn't realize she had elevated her viciousness. Okay, can you get a muzzle on that
Sorry.
dog? So, whether or not the other parent has earned the anger, it's still the kids. So I just think that even if the parent deserved it, even if the parent deserved the
Oh,
anger,
yeah.
the children are still going to grow up and go, yeah, my dad may have been a jerk, but man, I wish my mom wouldn't have talked about it. I wish my mom wouldn't have discussed my mother's.
And the truth of the matter is, when you have children, that's still their dad or that's still their mom, right?
Yeah.
It's still their mom. It's still their dad. And
That's
you
right.
don't have the right to impose how you feel about that other person on how the child is going to form an opinion about that person.
That's right.
Whatever.
Right.
Because it's always an opinion. It's a perception. If you're angry and somebody they did something to me, that is on you. That's your experience. That's your life. That doesn't mean that that's your child's experience. And that, it's just, I find it so challenging to deal with that information.
I think the most important thing that we can continue to do through the Mariel Hemingway Foundation and out comes the Sun podcast is bringing people to the forefront who have these tools. Because if you're a child right now, you don't have any resources unless the
Yes.
parents are bright enough and
Yes.
thoughtful enough to bring someone in to help you.
Yes.
But if you're in a community where you have suffered devastation and pain, then you have to lean on everybody around you. And you and I've talked about different organizations that are on the ground, whether it's Project Hope or it's people coming out and offering help, help to the people.
Mm-hmm.
And we will continue to expose that. But I think that one of the responsibility that we have, each and every one of us, regardless of our personal pain and our private challenges, is to consider, think first before hitting send. Because I've written many emails that were just, just full of daggers, and then I didn't hit send because the cathartic process of me writing or typing out, and another thing used so and so, really felt good, and then I let it go.
Yeah,
Because to send it would have done devastation.
And it's extremely important that, there's a lot of memes out there about the power of words, but once you have said something, it is said and it is out there and it doesn't come back. So if like I'm a big journaler. I write, if I'm pissed off, it's a dear so and so, but I write it.
Yeah.
I write it. I don't dare type it because I've had those situations. When you sent it and you didn't mean to. Oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
How can you?
Yeah, you accidentally sent it to the wrong person.
Oh yeah. Well, that's always a good one too. Yeah. There are some days when I just think technology is just out to kill you.
Oh yeah.
But it's true. Journal out that information, because honestly, it's all that vitriolic feeling is yours. It's just something that's built up, whether it's right or wrong. But really, choosing words and being really mindful, response versus reaction. When you respond to something, you take a breath. You inhale, you exhale, and then you're like, okay. It's instead of, or, don't ever send an email or a text or make a phone call when you're angry. Like, it's just never going to be a good idea, right? It's just a bad thing. And, and this whole conversation brings up the fact that I think addiction is kind of behind a lot of this. Slater gave us a great quote from a doctor who said, I gotta make that bigger because I can't see it. Hang on. Our brains are, I can't see it. Shoot. Hang on. I'm getting there. No, it's not getting big. Hang on. Oh, there. I'm getting close. Okay. Our brains are not evolved for this world of plenty. As Dr. Tom Fimucane, is that? Tom Fimucane, who studies diabetes in the setting of chronic sedentary feeling, said, we are cacti in the rainforest. And like cacti, we are drowning in dopamine. Now, what that means is all of this social media that is happening right now, right? The clicks, the likes, and I'm not immune. I'm not immune to getting a like, and I suppose I do feel, oh wow, I've got 100 something like or whatever. But that's an addiction. And I think that the problem comes from the fact that most human beings, it's difficult not to be addictive when there are addictive things out there. Sugar, dopamine, things that create a pleasant high. A split second high. So you keep looking for that high, right? That's what addiction is. It's like, I want that feeling. I want that. And then the problem with addiction is you keep searching for that feeling, right? And you never really get back to the first time you felt that feeling. Anyway, but that's what I think what it all comes down to is at the base of all of this is that there is this disease of wanting this false sense of joy, and and likes are not love. That is not somebody who loves
No.
you, who knows you, who cares about you. They may say wonderful things or not, whatever, but they don't know who you are. I mean, I'm
No.
so grateful for the people that follow me, but that, do I know them? Do they know me? God bless them all. I hope to know a few of them. But I mean, honestly, how do you really know those people? And how do you? They don't. It's but it's searching for this kind of superfluous and not an empty feeling of love, and it's not real, right? It's not
Right.
real connection. So when you talked about connection, that's the key, getting our community connections, real
Yes.
connections where you really meet in person if you can. God bless you. I hope you can. Because those community connections are really, I
Yeah.
think that's what's going to save us getting back. And I think
Well,
coming out of COVID has been challenging for people because they're scared to be in community again.
well, the likes and the dopamine hit from getting the likes and thinking they like me, the Sally Field moment, they really like me. But the truth of the matter is, businesses are now relying upon that.
Yeah.
So some people won't hire somebody to
Yeah.
be spokesperson or to come to the job until they have a big following in social media. How much engagement do you have? How many likes do you have? Are you talking to the people that are liking your page? It's a lot going on. And so I've had people say to me, "Oh, Melissa, you need to be more engaging with the people that are liking things and saying things." Okay.
Yeah.
And when I asked why, they said, "Well, it shows engagement and we're more likely to hire you for speaking." So now it's become this driver from an unhealthy position. It's not.
Right.
We're telling our teenagers, don't
Right.
pay attention to social media because that's not where the real friendships lie. Those aren't the people who know you. Someone who says something mean doesn't know you. Ignore it. Turn
Right.
off the comments. Whatever. But then they get to an age where they're saying businesses,
Well,
sororities at colleges are asking the same question. Sororities are saying, how many people do you have on your feed? How many likes do you get? These are the questions that are being asked during
in
brush
college?
in
No.
college. And so these
Wow.
kids, we're telling them, don't pay attention to that. And then at some point, where do
But
they cross the bridge where they have to go, no, I need to care about this and I need
I need to
everyone to
care.
like me?
Well, you're saying don't care about it, and what you're saying is when you go into the workplace, or you get
Yes.
out of college, you need it. They're saying you need it.
Yes.
They're saying you won't get anywhere unless you have it.
That's
What
exactly
does
right.
what is that? That to
Yeah.
me is, yeah, it's certainly a contradiction, but it's also like, wow,
It sits
we're
in the
so
same bath, Mariel.
yeah.
It sits in the, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was going to say, it sits in
No.
that same bath that we're talking
Yeah.
about the journalist and the news channels
Yeah.
who are now trying to compete with social media by bringing influencers on to discuss the news on their news
Oh, I
channels.
know.
And so it sits in the same bath of misguided interest. They're all, it's, look, far be it from me, as an entrepreneur myself, to spit in the face of capitalism, because God knows I've benefited from owning my own company. But the truth of the matter is, this marketing corporate greed, which is driving us, these beautiful souls and spirits all around the planet that we are, really into the ground. And at what point do we say, ah, it's a lot, it's enough?
It's enough.
At what point do we have meetings with we can't drive the big corporations because they're like monsters unto themselves, but smaller businesses, middle-sized businesses and small businesses, mom and pop shops. At
Local,
what point?
local. Yeah.
Yeah, and local. When do we meet
Right.
with them and say, wouldn't you like to come to the job fair at the high school and meet the kids one on one? And so you
Yeah.
won't really care if she has 200 people on her page or whatever. Yeah, I think it's again, it goes back to our original suggestion: community. It's
Community.
all
It
about
it
community.
it makes me think of, we're here in Los Angeles this week, and it's super fun, but it's a lot of energy. Like, I am so surprised coming back. I was like, whoa, everybody drives really fast.
Yeah.
I forgot I left a year ago. It wasn't like I've been gone for years, but it's like pace is fast. People are going, and and they're constantly on their phones. They're constantly, you go into a market or a restaurant, they're they're doing this in this what they think is real engagement, but is it real engagement? And that's what I love about kind of having part time in a small town, right? It's that I go to the farmer's market, we get raw milk from this raw milk farm, and he's a good guy, and we talk to him face to face, and he tells us, about Bessie's, what, not Bessie, but you know what I mean? He has 2 cows and he produces all this milk from 2 cows. And it's amazing. And he provides our whole community with these, big gallons of raw milk, just like
Wow.
when we were growing up, right?
Yep.
And there's something we need to remind ourselves that the world is fantastic, big, fast, wonderful, and we've got a lot of information. But there's also some small parts of it, and you can get that in the cities as well. There are great farmers markets here in LA because I lived here and I love them. And you can have those community connections. You have to make more of an effort, but it's an important effort to make. And it's not just about, oh, I eat healthy. It's making a connection with a farmer who spent time and looking him in the eye and
That's
knowing
right.
that energetically you're connecting with that person in it changes you. All I'm saying is that real connection, real like seeing people in person
Mm-hmm.
changes you. And that's how you learn. I mean, we get information from the internet. We get incredible information, but do we learn cellularly? I think we learn cellularly by the physicality of being with another human being. I don't know, that's my personal opinion, and we are already half an hour away. I mean, we could talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. It was so good. I want to apologize to Slater because I was having such trouble reading that quote. But um, anyway, I think that it is it's a great time, and it's a difficult time, and I think we need to be compassionate to those that are out there who've just been through a disaster, who've lost their
Yep.
homes, who've been, completely devastated. We have to be compassionate to those that get attacked and that are bullied on social media in the same kind of way, right? We have to have compassion for the strangeness of our world. Our world is different because we know so much. But we do have a responsibility to ourselves to slow it down once in a while so that we can connect with one another, connect with nature, do all those 7 doctors things, which I just love. Anyway, it was so great that you all listened today to our conversation. This is kind of the once a month conversation talk that we have, and it's always. I think it's profound. I think it's going to really affect our Mariel Hemingway Foundation and our Outcomes the Sun podcast moving
Yep.
into the future. So thank you, Melissa. This was fun.
Thank you, my friend. And the key word for us is compassion and community. Remember them both as we move forward.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Out Comes the Sun. You can listen to our podcast on Spotify, on Apple, and on YouTube. And you can donate to the Mariel Hemingway Foundation at themarielhemingwayfoundation.org. And I want to spell Hemingway for you, HEMINGWAY.org. I only say that because a lot of people put 2 M's, and that just won't work. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, you can go to the donate button at the bottom, and it will take you right to a link with the QR code. And if you go to marielhemingway.org, you can also press the donate button and be able to donate to the foundation, which is designed to help guide people towards finding the right solutions for their mental health issues. That is my goal. I'm just trying to raise money so I can come up with an app and a website that has all the information you could possibly want to know about mental health and where to go. But we are in the process of making that happen, and your donation means so much to us. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.